What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
We brought down the cost of energy. Wages have gone up higher, faster than inflation. We have a lower inflation rate than most any other nation in the world.
We have seen over the course of the last year plus in the United States is a historically strong economic recovery. And that has been supported by this president's economic policies.
Fake. Good morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And if you were watching on our YouTube channel, you would see Steve Spellman, who's hanging out with us this morning, going, huh? And Steve is a financial dude. He knows finances. Your reaction to when we hear these people in the administration say, man, things are good. It's good. We're good.
Something doesn't add up.
It's not adding up. And to the point, we talk about the economy, and we talk about the fancy CPI numbers, inflation numbers, and all this. Ultimately, at 6:09 in the morning, we ask you on your way to work, getting ready, maybe you're watching on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, look at your financial situation. Seriously, because I used to do this question all the time, and I don't like to compare it, well, when Trump was president. But when Trump was president, it's a big old but, isn't it, Hannah?
Every time.
But, let me say it this way. The previous president, under the previous president, the question I asked for 4 years, and we would ask this on the show all the time, how's your personal financial situation? And I would ask people that didn't like Trump because of his mean tweets, I would ask them, how are you doing financially? If you were to look at your financial situation 2 years ago prior to Trump becoming president, are you better off now? And I'm telling you, it was a reckoning for a lot of these liberals and progressives that I would talk to, because more often than not, if they were being honest, they would look at me and say, well, yeah, my financial situation is better.
You know, but Branden, compared to some other countries like Turkey, Argentina, Ukraine, they experience 100% inflation. It could be a lot worse. We're doing a lot better than there.
That's crazy. There's Mr. John Marsh.
But
That's a big old but. Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
I need you, Hannah. I'm serious.
Gross.
Right?
not like that.
Not like that.
Family program.
Not yesterday, it wasn't.
Nope, not even close.
Yeah. Had to check in on what you guys talked about on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri podcast from the station's app yesterday.
That'll teach you.
New apps, by the way. These are some really cool apps, except for whenever producer Hannah gets on there. What did they do on the show? Were you all? And I thought it was Steve or John that mentioned Hooters yesterday on the show.
I think it was Brian.
I don't think it was me, but yeah.
I think I said don't go there. More ways than one.
I was listening to the 6 o'clock hour of yesterday's show, and by the time I picked up my phone and paused the podcast to sit there and go, did I really just hear that? I was a whole 1 minute and 50 seconds into the episode, and Hooters had already been mentioned.
And when we say Hooters had been mentioned, we're not talking about anatomy. We're talking about the restaurant Hooters. I just want to be very clear.
Does that make it better?
It's kind of one and the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess it is. We want to get to something Joe Biden said yesterday in Hawaii. And it's so, number one, he's lying, and that's what he does. Number two, it was just so incredibly callous. He said this in Hawaii, where he was speaking to victims of that wildfire there. And what he said is just, it's so callous, and he lacks self-awareness. He lacks self-awareness so much, Hannah, he doesn't realize that he lacks self-awareness.
Stephanie's not here to argue with you about this.
Circular logic. I think if you understand that you lack self-awareness, are you a little self-aware?
If you realize it, yeah, eventually. But if you don't realize it, somebody else has to notice it, like you are.
Yeah. By the way, as we talk about finances, things like that, a couple of city council meetings last night across mid-Missouri, Jefferson City and Columbia, they talked about money. GOP's universal reaction to Trump skipping the debate. I think it's pretty universal. We're going to cover some of that with Christopher Arps, 635. The one big So there is going to be a television event, I believe, this week, a political television event that is going to be bigger than tomorrow night's debate, where Stephanie Bell is going to be reporting live for us. Biden yesterday in Hawaii.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. And lightning struck at home and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. Make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
He's in Hawaii where 114 people have lost their lives. He's talking to incredibly grieving family members. I cannot imagine what they are going through. It's complete devastation from these fires. And the President of the United States, the guy who, whether we like it or not, he reps all of us. He's standing there. I feel your pain, to quote Bill Clinton. I feel your pain because I almost lost my 67 Corvette. And he names it by year. He lets you know not only is it a Corvette, but that is a classic top-of-the-line Corvette. I almost lost that. I understand your pain.
And boxes of documents right next to it.
Where? And if I'd lost my Corvette, where would I have hidden all those documents? And he almost lost his cat too. He's saying this to family members. 114 people have died. And this guy just doesn't have the mental wherewithal. This is not about him, whatever you want to say. He just lacks this mental acuity to say something so cold and hard. If you were in a circle of friends and somebody said that, do you pull that dude aside and say, hey, Steve, just so you know?
It probably didn't come across like you were hoping it was. Like you say, somebody's just lost a loved one or something, and you say, some cliche thing. It's like, I probably shouldn't have said anything, but...
Well, and we all know that one person in our life who can't just let you have something. Like, they always have to one-up what you're trying to tell them or what you're going through. That's Joe.
And I would add one thing, too. That was a rambling statement. That whatever you just played, it sounded a little difficult to hear, but that clearly had to be ad-libbed. I can't imagine them putting that in a speech. I just can't.
Also, is it normal for the President of the United States to wait this long to go visit the scene of a tragedy like that? I felt like it was a long time.
His reasoning was he said he didn't want to get in the way, and that was sometimes they go right away, sometimes they don't. So I've seen it in both, but that. And Hannah asked, it's a great question. I still just don't. That was a little hard to understand there.
Here's my experience with that Gulf Coast 2010 BP oil spill, and everybody was demanding, Barack, you need to come to the coast and see us. And he was proper in waiting. Y'all, especially in a place where there's wildfires like that, because the logistics of a presidential visit while you're in a massive disaster cleanup mode. I do agree with Joe on that, but we're going to do some fact checks on Joe Biden coming up at 7:10 this morning, some fact checks you want to hear. So that, to be honest, it's proper to wait. And to Hannah's point, by the way, we all know somebody who's got to one-up us.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but...
I don't want to compare difficulties, but...
So then just shut your mouth.
Yesterday I was in the office, and I did this, and I swear to God, I did the exact same thing. We've got a very talented individual in this building. His name is Josh Ryan. He's in creative services. Steve's pest control commercials, all the cool things.
National award-winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those commercials.
Like, this dude goes to New York City, and he's up against radio stations from St. Louis, Kansas City, New York, Chicago, and this dude... right here in mid-Missouri is winning these national awards. At the ball game Sunday, St. Louis, one of his commercials comes on the screen, and it's it's our guy, Josh Ryan. And I'm like, wow, and I'm talking about it with him in the hallway yesterday, and I said, I'm not kidding. I said to him, not to one-up you,
but come on.
But here was the story, and I wasn't trying to one-up him. Several years ago, we were doing a big thing at a Mizzou baseball game, and as I'm leaving the game, they're playing our sports station, KTGR. You know the story?
Was this the race where you had to wear a hot dog suit?
This was immediately after the race, where I donned a hot dog suit and stumbled across the ball field there. But some folks approach me as I'm walking out of the stadium, and they say, hey, are you Branden from Wake Up Mid-Missouri? And I say, sure, and we get to talking. And all of a sudden, there's kind of a 5 to 7 second lull in the conversation. When you're in a conversation and there's a lull for 5 seconds, John, that's a long time, 5 seconds, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
An eternity.
An eternity. And all of a sudden, on KTGR, our sports station, here comes a commercial. Hi, I'm Branden Rathert for Low Testosterone Clinic in St. Louis. And here I'm chatting with these folks during this lull in the conversation, and there's me talking about low testosterone issues.
And they all backed off like 10 feet immediately.
I shook the dude's hand real hard and firm, said, "Nice meeting you. I'm out." Yeah. But I was trying to one-up the dude. But when you have the President of the United States say, well, I'm not trying to one-up you, but, I almost lost my 67 Corvette, and I almost lost my cat.
Not to mention his testosterone.
I do also think, and you bring up a very good point, Brandon, I think back to how President Clinton, and John will remember President Clinton came to Jefferson City after that horrible flood. I mean, it was a mess. He came after several disasters in
Mel Carnahan's
state.
funeral.
Yes,
and
he
spoke
did.
at it,
and really got high marks from both sides of the aisle. Or President Reagan. There's a way to do it. Clearly that was ad lib. That did not come across well.
Richard says, saw that yesterday. Joe Biden blew my mind more than some of the crazy women I have dated over the years. And Mike reminds us, by the way, Joe Biden has shared this story over the years about, he almost lost the house and the Corvette and the cat. It was just incredibly horrible. I know you've lost 114 loved ones here in Hawaii, but, I almost lost a cat. That story in and of itself is, it's a lie. It's an incredible exaggeration.
I was almost in a car wreck once.
Almost. One time, almost. And the story is a lie. So here are the facts of that story. Years ago, yes, there was a small fire contained in the kitchen that firefighters had out within a matter of minutes. The house was not under threat of being destroyed. It didn't get his precious 1967 Corvette, but it's one of those stories that he has told over the years that just he keeps building and exaggerating, and then you get a bunch of people, and this is why they fall for the old, it's just lovable Uncle Joe, because they're like, what an empathizer. He almost lost his cat in a fire in his Corvette. He can empathize with these people who have lost 114 loved ones. The national news outlets, they go, look at Joe, and nobody checks it. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are consuming these news on cable channels go, did you hear that? And they go to work. So when you go to work this morning, I would encourage you to share this. Joe, this incredibly callous thing that he said, number one, it was just incredibly, just disheartening, and it was also a lie. Coming up a few minutes from now here on the show, we're going to there are some new developments in the Hunter Biden case. Also, 8:10 this morning, Michael Bekesha, Judicial Watch. There's some movement on the January 6th thing.
say that they're tough on crime and tough on guns, but it's okay that Hunter Biden lies on a background check. American people are quickly losing faith in this government because of the two-tier justice system, because of the collusion.
U.S. Representative from Florida, Kat Kamek, talking about, of course, the Hunter and Joe Biden stuff. That is getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown. We do have a little bit of some more slow movement on that this morning. House Republicans subpoenaed several FBI and IRS agents involved in the federal investigation into Joe and Hunter as the party weighs whether to open an impeachment inquiry into the president coming up this fall. Leaders of the House Judiciary and Ways and Means Committees demanded testimony from 4 agents who worked on the years-long Justice Department case into Hunter's tax and business dealings. One focus of this congressional inquiry has been an October 2022 meeting where U.S. Attorney for Delaware, David Weiss, who was in charge of the Hunter case, supposedly told investigators, "I ain't the decider. I can't determine whether charges should be filed in this case." Both Weiss and the Justice Department have denied Gary Shapley's account. Remember, he was the IRS employee who has been on television saying, listen, here's how they're slow walking this thing. He's the one who testified in Washington, D.C. I wish we would see some quicker movement, and here's why. And I get they're saying, well, it takes a long time because the web is so sprawling. It's going to take a while to get to this. But when reps like Jim Jordan, Comer get onto Fox all the time, it's coming. The walls are closing in. I think as casual viewers of news might get tired of hearing the same thing over and over and over.
We're getting there. I think of the old John Fogerty song, "Fortunate Son." You know, it ain't me. I ain't no senator's son. I ain't no fortunate one. You know, if this were Eric Trump even had a glimmer, a shadow of accusation of this, it would be the top story in the world forever.
John, I'm giving Steve 8 points for referencing an old CCR song as it relates to
there you go.
Modern day politics.
We're going to have him sing Green River for us later.
Former President Trump says this is the one political television event that I believe will be bigger than the debate tomorrow night, where Stephanie Bell is going to be reporting live from. She's going to be back with us here in a few days. He says he's going to turn himself in Georgia on Thursday. Here's what he said on social media. Quote, "Can you believe it? I'll be going to Atlanta, Georgia on Thursday to be arrested." His bond set at $200,000. I might be more inclined, maybe shame on me, I'd be more inclined to watch that because of the circus that I believe that is going to, more so than any of these, these arraignments they've had in the past. He's going to be arraigned. He is going to be there. I would watch that more than I would watch the debate. Maybe. By the way, coming up 6:35, Arps is here. I'm sensing a universal reaction from the Republican Party following Trump's decision to make it official and say, you know what, I am not going to be doing that debate, which is going to start tomorrow night. To be 8 o'clock our time, being moderated by Fox News host Brett Baer and Martha McCallum. Unlike some previous debates, which have been simulcast across a number of networks, this one is going to be exclusively on Fox. It'll also be on the Fox Business Network, and if you're not able to get to a television at that time, it's going to be on Fox's website, other streaming digital platforms. Who is on the stage? It might be easier to say who's not going to be on the stage. That dude from the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez.
Yeah, he's cool, but doesn't have any support.
Really bummed that Asa Hutchinson. Very successful woman who makes it happen. Becky Arps. She is the lovely wife of Christopher Arps, chrisarps.com. I want to start with this right now as we welcome you into the show. Chris Christie regarding Trump's decision to not do the debate.
He's a coward. There's no other conclusion to come to that he's both afraid of me and he's afraid of defending his record. And if I had his record, I'd be nervous about showing up too.
So, Chris, I'm seeing a universal reaction from the Republican Party regarding Trump's decision. And I will say, by the way, I don't think this is Trump's decision. Let's be clear. This is his attorney's decision, I'm pretty sure, to not do the debate. Do you agree with Chris Christie that Trump's a coward for not doing the debate?
No, I think it's two reasons, and I think you hit on one of them. Trump could be in great legal jeopardy if he does these debates because anything that he says, of course, can be used against him in his trials. And I'm sure that his opponents on stage will be asking him questions that could get him in legal jeopardy. So I think he is taking the advice of his lawyers, not participating in these debates, but he can also say, hey, I've got such a huge lead. Why should I put myself in jeopardy and give one of my opponents a viral moment? I think time will tell whether this will be a mistake for Donald Trump. A lot of voters may feel that this is arrogance, that he already has the nomination locked up. A lot of voters look at these debates to help them make the decisions on who to choose. So I think this is a time will tell moment, but at right now, it's not going to hurt him, I don't think.
Well, and I'll explain. I stand by what I said yesterday, and I will say this, man. I am solidly, Chris, in the minority on this thought. We have some poll numbers from what Republicans are saying. Chris Arps, chrisarps.com, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh is here.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Stephanie Bell. She's going to be covering the debate for us. She'll be back here in a few days. My name is Branden Rathert. Producer Hannah is back.
Hello.
Makes me really happy, by the way. So yesterday, and here's why I think this will help Trump. Two things. Number one, and I stand by this, nobody's mind is going to change on Trump. And I understand his huge leads in the GOP primary. The big challenge on our way back to making America great again is the general public. I just don't see that they would elect this guy. Even if some of these people that vote for Democrats, some of these people that vote for Biden, if they wise up and start to look at things like their bank account and the silliness of these social issues, they might vote Republican. They will not vote for Trump. And I listen, Chris, I've never hoped more in my life that I'm wrong on this. With everything I believe, God, I hope I'm wrong on this, but I just don't believe I'm going to.
Brandon, I've expressed those same sentiments. I think that Donald Trump will probably win the Republican nomination. The big hurdle in front of him in the fall is, will moderates and independents and suburban women, will they vote for him this time like they did in 2016? Polling right now says that they will not. I don't think that we can look at this logical, like a lot of us Republicans look at issues that, hey, the economy is bad. Joe Biden is senile. He is not up to the job. Of course, independents and moderates won't vote again for that. Don't be fooled. People have Trump derangement syndrome. They've been exposed to Donald Trump for the last 6-7 years. They've seen some of his antics. And I think just some of those voters, I don't think he will ever get back.
And if you have Trump derangement syndrome, we have some help for you this morning. You can call 800-662-HELP, 800-662-HELP. Now, Steve Spellman, our guest co-host this morning, writes a lot for the Missouri and is very active in local politics. You see this differently than Chris and I do.
Yeah, I think it's part of the process. I think you participate. It's an interesting thing that Chris brings up about, he's got an active, lawsuit against him, criminal accusations. So, your lawyers say don't do that. I mean, that doesn't stop him in public otherwise. But, the line from, was it Chris Christie, your clip? He's saying, Trump's afraid of Chris Christie. That's why he's not showing. That's the bogus statement of the day. I think my Trump Biden's, I almost lost my car thing.
Yeah, the last time Chris Christie said anything pertinent was a couple weeks ago.
Is there a man over 60 in America who needs like another Cialis commercial? Like, we get it. We know it's available. It's all good, right?
That's the last thing of any pertinence that he is.
What?
He's talking about erectile dysfunction meds. He's like, we get it. Any man over 60, we know about this. He was trying to make a point about the pharmaceutical industry and money.
Did you say erection or election?
I think that was unscripted as well, surely. Political consultants didn't craft that for him. And a lot of wordsmithing going on there.
Well, and one of the things DeSantis said yesterday, he said, and I agree with DeSantis on this, Chris Christie, as a matter of fact, Tim says, Chris Christie's an idiot. And we know why he's in this. He's in this ballgame. I know people like Jen Psaki and George Stephanopoulos. You can think about any other political commentator who has, whether they've run for office, been part of an administration. He's just auditioning for more solid jobs, I believe, on cable channels. Our guest this morning, Chris Arps, chrisarps.com.
Chris, to play devil's advocate, the standard question I've asked people, it's the worst case scenario, Donald Trump is convicted and can't run, and Joe Biden decides to step down. You know, if that's a possibility, who would you see running in either one of the main party primaries?
Well, we've seen the polls, and we know that Kamala Harris is not a very popular VP. I don't think they would want to go into November with her. I think it would probably be an open primary in the Democratic Party if Joe Biden stepped down. I'd have to put my money on, of course, is the Gordon Gekko wannabe from California, Governor Newsom with the slick back hair. He's been basically running a shadow presidential campaign for the last year and a half, challenging the Texas and Florida governors. So I would put my money on him. I think J.B. Pritzker next door here in Illinois, I think he would probably throw his hat in the ring. He is a heir to the Hyatt Hotel fortune, so he's a billionaire. He can sell fun. You asked me on the Republican side. I think right now you'd have to say Ron DeSantis. He's the one that people put their hopes on to take out Trump, even though he has been fading. And then, no pun intended, of course, the dark horse, Tim Scott.
Chris.
You like that? No pun intended. The dark horse, Tim Scott.
We gave Steve 8 points.
We'll let Chris say that one. But
we gave Steve 8 points earlier this morning for referring to a classic rock
that's
song.
9 anyway, right there.
As it relates to Hunter Biden, fortunate son, CCR was the mention from Spellman. Chris, I'm giving you 9 points.
Wow. Not a 10? No, that was pretty good. Come on, that's a 10.
9.5.
Okay.
9.5. Chris Arps, chrisarps.com.
The Romanian judge gives you the full 10.
The dream ticket the dream ticket is Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom. That's the mic drop ticket right there.
I'd have to agree with you on that, but Michelle Obama wants absolutely nothing with politics to do with politics. The happiest day of her life was her last day in the White House when the Obamas could leave. I don't think she wants to step into that arena at all, but she would be hugely popular, no doubt.
And it was the best day of her life because it was the day she really got to meet Donald Trump and shake his hand. It was the last. That's why it was such a great great day for her. And let's talk. You just mentioned a dream ticket. We hear all this talk polling for what polling's worth a year out from the GOP primary. We talk about DeSantis. And by the way, I am evolving on DeSantis. I was a big fan of DeSantis right up until he announced he was running for president. I have evolved on him. And really, Tim Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy, I like them all. I would be happy with any of them. And I would be especially happy because I believe they would have a better chance of winning a general election.
Yeah, who is electable and who's going to do the most reasonable job. We can have our dream candidate that's, checks all the boxes and talks all about all the issues we like, but who's electable for the general electorate come November of next year?
How far do you think Vivek Ramaswamy will go with his proposal that the voting age should be raised from 18 to 25? You're going to lose a whole lot of the youth vote with that proposal, and he's come out with that. And then the comments that he made a couple of weeks ago of getting rid of Juneteenth and calling it a junk holiday. I think that messes up a lot of the black vote as well. I don't think he's electable in a general election just by some of the comments that he's made the last couple of months.
And I would wonder, and the younger vote, as we think about our future, the younger vote, I wonder how much of that Republicans would have in the first place. So polling, I am solidly in the minority on my thoughts and why this. And here's why I think Trump would benefit from not doing the debate. We know Trump. Everybody knows Trump. And again, we go back to he's going to do something viral, and it's just going to be more excuses to hate on him. He's not going to change anybody's mind in that debate. And again, I go back to it's his attorneys. Polling, Chris, we already have our hands on some polling this morning regarding thoughts on Trump doing the debate. We'll have those numbers coming up 5 minutes from now with Chris Arps here on Wake Up Mid.
there.
I love
There
it.
you go.
Welcome back to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Brandon. There's Marsh Houseworth, producer Hannah. Steph's got to be back in a few days. She is covering the debate for us tomorrow in Wisconsin. Steve Spellman is here, very active in local politics. Read some of his stuff on the Missourian. Steve has a question for you about a Missouri race. But in 3 minutes, you're evolving a little bit on this Trump thing, being at the debate. Or not, you're not evolving. You have an addendum.
Yeah, I do. I think that it'll be a better debate with President Trump not there. I think it'll be more substantive. If Donald Trump was there, we know it would be about he's the greatest this and he did the greatest thing that, and the election was stolen from me, and he would take all the oxygen out of the air talking about those issues instead of anything substantive. So I'm looking forward to him not actually being there.
Yeah, Chris, pivoting a little closer to home, the governor race, there's 3 guys running for the Republican nomination for that November of next year. Well, August of next year is a primary, and, that's heating up. The Secretary of State Ashcroft's putting op-eds in every publication in the world about ESG or abortion and so on and so forth. What's your take on how that's heating up and when that's going to really start to be front of mind for watchers of the news?
It's an interesting race here. We've got one candidate, Lieutenant Governor, who is raising a whole lot of money, but the other 2 candidates suggest that he's running in the wrong primary, that he's the Democrat. You've got Jay Ashcroft, who has the name recognition, of course, Secretary of State, a couple of terms. I think he is the prohibitive favorite, of course. Polling is showing that. Then you've got upstart Bill Eigel, state senator from here in St. Charles County. I think he's running as a Make America Great Donald Trump type of candidate. So it'll be interesting to see what the Missouri voters will choose for the Republican primary. I've got to say personally, I've got to put my money on Jay Ashcroft.
So you think he would be the front runner at this point? It's Chris Arps.
Well, polls are saying that. He's got a huge lead right now.
Well, that's what the polls at this point in time. A year away from the election. That's where Chris Arps is. ChrisArps.com. You're listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm sure you're going to...
Make me sound like an outlier and stuff.
well, listen, I will say, our gubernatorial race on the GOP side, I think it's a pretty solid race. I mean, I think you've got some real solid candidates.
Yeah, and thinking about...
it's going to be hard to beat the Ashcroft name, I think.
Yeah,
But to be serious about it.
Yeah, and he's been very prominent as Secretary of State. And people can like Bill Eigel to death. A lot of listeners do, but you think about electability. As Crystal Quaid is it, the Democrat who's probably not polling very high, outside chance there. Is she going to pull a Claire McCaskill and then think that there's a Todd Aiken or something in the Bill Eigel candidacy? If she has a chance, it's maybe him as the opponent, but.
And her saving grace is abortion. It's going to be an issue probably next year on the ballot, so that may help her some. And all depends on who our nominee is, how they work that issue.
And I think that's interesting when we talk about the abortion thing. I don't know if that's a make or break issue for people when they vote, but recent polling, we know nationwide a majority of Americans, they're okay with some type of abortions, and recent polling out of specifically the state of Missouri mirrors that, says, the majority of Missourians are okay with some type of abortion. A couple of quick texts, and I want to drop these polling numbers regarding Trump skipping the debate. Jim says, I will not vote for Trump in the primary. Sandy says, other candidates would win only if Trump tells his base to vote for them. Ramaswamy will get the young vote. Scott, the African-American vote. That's from listener Tim. The poll numbers, for what polling is worth, 73% of GOP voters in a survey says Trump should be participating in the first primary debate, and that puts me solidly in the minority. Chris, final minute here. A couple of things you're working on. When are you on Newsmax next?
I will be on Newsmax Thursday, 5:36 and 7, and on Sundays I'm starting to do the Sunday Report, Sunday Agenda show. So you may catch me this weekend on Newsmax as well.
All right, so you're getting solidly entrenched there with the work that you are doing on Newsmax. And if you watch ratings, and I think ratings are important because it shows what are people watching when it comes to cable news. And Newsmax, you guys have had some success. And you guys are beating CNN.
in our primetime lineup, Eric Bowling Show is beating Cooper Anderson. What's his name? Anderson Cooper.
One of those
is beating is beating his show pretty regularly in primetime.
Really?
Did you know he was Gloria Vanderbilt's son?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that.
Did you know that?
I do now. See, you learn
A
something.
little trivia for you there.
New and exciting. We're going to do some kind of trivia stuff for you this morning. You know, that dude who's got the song Richmond, North of Richmond. Learning more about this guy. That's coming up 7:35, and he's got he has three. The top 10 songs that have been downloaded in the past week. Everybody knows the Richmond, North of Richmond song. He's got 3 songs in the top 10. 10 days ago, I did not know who Oliver Anthony is, and more people are getting to know this guy, and it's important because of what he sings about. Chris Arps, chrisarps.com. We love you, man.
that I had to pick up a second job teaching in the evenings to kind of compensate.
So those are real life stories of voters saying, here's how the economy affects us. And I want to mention this before we move forward because some important stuff here. By the way, coming up 8:25 Morning Bell, basically there is one car anymore. And I was shocked that there's even one of these, John. There is basically one new car that you can still get for under $20,000. I hate to say it, but I'm like, oh, you can still get a car for under 20 grand? I remember thinking, man, I could probably do $11,000-$12,000, for a new Ford Escort, one car that you can get for under 20K. We're covering that Morning Bell at 8:25 Business News. A little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. She's going to be back here with us in the next few days. She is covering the debate. We'll have reports from her. Biden disses Hawaii wildfire victims. This is really sad what the president of the United States said. We're going to highlight that here shortly. GOP's universal reaction to Trump skipping the debate. A lot of folks, the majority, according to a poll, for what polls are worth, the majority of Republicans are like, yeah, he needs to be in the debate. January 6th, there's a lawsuit. There's a hearing last week regarding Judicial Watch's lawsuit against Capitol Police. Now, the guy doing the case, Michael Bekesha, with Judicial Watch, he happens to be a Mizzou grad. The judge in the case had kind of a baffling line of questioning for Michael Bekesha. What was that? Find out. Michael Bekesha is here at 8:10, and that dude who's got the song, what is it, Rich Men North of Richmond, Old Men North of Richmond, top song, top downloaded song in America again this week. And now the dude, he's got like other songs. He's got 3 songs in the top 10. You know who doesn't have 3 songs in the top 10? Morgan Wallen doesn't. Taylor Swift doesn't. Luke Combs doesn't.
Creedence Clearwater Revival doesn't.
They do not.
They don't, but this dude does. Learning more about him at 7:35, and this is kind of interesting, too. Top YouTube videos of all time as we were looking at this dude's music. Here's why it's fascinating. It's, I'm suspecting, okay, there's Britney Spears and all those other videos and a lot of them. 2 big surprises. Number 1, the content that's landing in the top spots. And then the other thing that's interesting, the 14th most watched video of all time on YouTube, number 14 on the list. That one really caught my attention. We're going to do that at 7:35. Want to get to what Biden said in Hawaii. But first, as we talk about the economy and finances, we open up, you hear these are folks on the streets. Man, this is what it's like for me right now. Whoever it is you voted for, and I think more of these Democrats and progressives are starting to see like, hey, this has not been good since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021. That was when Joe stood up and talked about unity and all that stuff. And people are going, wow, this really isn't working out so well for me. And people, you can go to a progressive city like the city of Columbia, Parks and Recreation Department. They want a budget increase. Why? Because part of it is because the cost of supplies are going up. So you have the same people in these management positions, for example, in the Parks Department at the city of Columbia who are progressives that go out and vote for Joe. And then like, well, we got to have more money because the cost of everything is going up. You know why the cost of that stuff is going up? Because people like you, in my opinion, you voted for Joe Biden. And then leadership in some of these progressive towns across America and St. Louis and Kansas City go, well, why is everything going up? Here's why. Because you voted for Joe Biden, and now you're coming at me wanting more money. And I say, no. Quick, I want to mention the stock market, the Dow. Got an interesting text, 874-9390. When you talk about the Dow closing and it's up and stuff like this, and this is from a 29-year-old dude who's like, hey, I'm newer to talk radio, and I hear you guys talking about these things. I feel you. I understand. Can you please explain to me when you talk about Dow and NASDAQ, what does that mean? You're a finance guy. And, Steve, you got to explain it to me like I'm 2 years old, man.
Okay, we'll be a little education here. And by the way, disclaimer, this is not financial advice, political advice, legal advice, nor marital advice. But just you hear the Dow is closing such and such, and people get a sense that that's a measure of the economy. If the Dow's up, well, I guess the economy's doing better today. If it's been down, things aren't so good. What the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's been around for a long time, put out by a company called Dow Jones. They're associated with the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, etc., part of that company. And basically that's 30 publicly traded stocks, so ownership of 30 big companies in the United States. They update those names from time to time. Some drop out. They had some new ones. You can look up. But anyway, that's a measure of how the stock market's doing. Financial professionals look a little broader than that in modern times. There's another measure you might hear, the S&P or the S&P 500. So S&P stands for a company called Standard & Poor's, and they do financial ratings and reporting and so forth too. And that's the top 500 publicly traded stocks. So that's a broader swath of the stock market. And so that's probably a better measure of what the stock market is doing in the United States. So the S&P 500 is broader than just that Dow that they talk about.
So this dude's name is Corey, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, Corey, so if we're looking at Dow, NASDAQ, what's the number that we want to pay attention? The Dow was down, the NASDAQ was up. 29-year-old Corey starting to figure things out on a political and financial level. Again, not advice.
Yeah.
But
day to day, it's a lot of noise.
Okay.
It's what's the trend and what's the trend over long periods of time. I get by a pet peeve here. They have these student groups and others that we're going to pick stocks and how good can you do in like 3 to 5 months? Well, that's not an investor. That's a stock picker. That's speculation. I'm not going to be involved with something like that. If you're in the stock market, it's good advice is a 5+ year time horizon. You don't need to touch that money.
People get
for
baffled a lot. People get baffled a lot, don't they, by the whole fascination with the day traders?
Yeah, you're going to get rich quick. What insight do you have? Here looking at public information when you've got some of the smartest financial people in the world, Goldman Sachs and Wall Street, and they've got supercomputers, and they're trading on nanoseconds, and they're trading way ahead of when you even see that information. It's difficult to do.
That's Steve Spellman, active in local politics, writes for the Missourian. Good morning, Steve. Welcome aboard.
Morning.
Steph Bell going to be back in the next few days. Mr. Halsworth.
Good to see you. I would add one thing to what Steve said, and that is one of the keys people look for is stocks that pay a dividend. You have to really look into it, and a lot of them do, but there are some that don't, and that's a big deal.
There's producer Hannah. We're glad to have you back.
I am glad to be here.
And I'm glad because we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah at 7:25-ish. As kids in Columbia Public School District, a lot of schools back in session, a lot more traffic out there, a lot more school buses. Just want to give you the heads up. Maybe you might need to give yourself a few extra minutes to leave for work this morning. There is Mr. John Marsh.
Good morning.
Look at what you just stepped in.
You are about to enter the no zone.
This is the O'Reilly Factor with Branden Rathert.
Yes, I hit Branden with a stick.
When Bill was on the TV, he had the O'Reilly Factor. We do the O'Reilly Factor. We take what folks say, we run it through the BS meter. Let's start with the President of the United States. Two things we're listening for here. It's not the best audio in the world, but basically he's in Hawaii and he's addressing these people. You know the devastation that they have gone through. There 114 people have died. They've lost their homes. They're having a hard time. I mean, it's just an incredible mess. So Joe, he's there. He's in Hawaii, and he's trying to relate a story because it's Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe relates to everybody. This is Joe yesterday.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. And lightning struck at home and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
Let's start with the fact check. Joe has told this story over the years. The Associated Press tells us Joe Biden saying, well, I almost lost my home and the cat and the Corvette and all that stuff. The Associated Press has said, well, it was a fire. Firefighters in it contained to a kitchen. Firefighters had it out within a matter of minutes. So Joe is just simply lying, and he lied yesterday. But he's trying to relate to the people of Hawaii. 114 people have died. And Joe feels your pain. He almost lost his Corvette. He almost lost his cat. That's the President of the United States. And these are things, man, I hope these people pay attention. We talk about the finances. We hope they're paying attention to that. And we pay attention to these. I couldn't imagine being there as a victim of this wildfire. I've lost my home and I've lost all this stuff. But the President is there. But I almost lost my cat one time. And as Hannah pointed out, is this one upmanship, Hannah?
I don't want to compare difficulties, but
Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes, it is.
Because isn't that the way? Usually, when somebody says, "I don't want to do this. I don't want to one up you. I don't want to brag.
I don't want to do whataboutism.
I don't want to do." Who's guilty of that? I don't want to do that. But it's the great qualifier. No matter what your opinion is, you just add in a big but.
We all want to connect with people, but that is not genuine. Not genuine statement.
It just sounded. It also clearly was ad libbed. I mean, it just did not. I'm not sure who had the microphone there. That was very hard to hear. But he did. Some of our listeners have criticized the president for not going to Hawaii. But the point of the matter is, he did want to wait until it was a dangerous situation. I mean, the fires were still going on, and there's still people that are missing, maybe out in the ocean, that were swept out. But the reason he said he didn't go right away is because he didn't want to. He wanted to let the emergency workers do their thing first, and then he got there. But the audio on that's just not very good.
Right. And this is a pattern of behavior. It's not like Joe just told one lie for the first time yesterday. He's been doing it for 60 years. He's been in politics. You remember the much ballyhooed interview that he did on the Weather Channel.
Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
I've already done that.
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
No. He is not at the time of that interview. He's done some stuff, but he hasn't done that. And again, here's another qualifier. So she's asked twice, are you going to declare a national emergency? I have done that. She says, so you are.
National emergency.
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Practically speaking. So like, for example, I am not the boss here, but practically speaking, I am in my mind. And I'm just not.
I'm not sure with the context of that. Was he president, senator, vice president? I'm not
that's
sure.
that's the Weather Channel interview last week, John.
Oh, that was
that
last
was recent.
week.
We were
Okay.
watching it here.
Yeah, because that that puts it in perspective.
Thank you. Coming up 7:25-ish, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
Everyone's favorite kid's toy is getting an adult upgrade.
Adult upgrades, kids' toys. It's What's Hot with Hannah. We'll You can thank Steve Spellman for that.
No, not me.
Thanks, Steve.
No.
7:25.
That was me yesterday when she wasn't. And the cat's away. Mice will play. But.
Well, I was a little concerned when I realized that Stephanie and I were going to be out on the same day because I didn't know what you boys would get up to without any female supervision.
And you were right on the money.
I'll blame it on Dad over here.
I know. Hooters was mentioned not even 2 minutes into the show yesterday.
That wasn't me.
It wasn't you, Steve.
No.
And we mentioned Hooters, by the way, yesterday.
You mentioned that.
Kids are going back to school. We were talking about the dining establishment. We were not talking about anatomy. 7:25-ish. Let's do Hannah.
Not much of a difference, but okay.
You're not a big fan of the Hannah song, are you?
It gets stuck in my head.
Hannah, Hannah, Hannah.
I like it.
Johnny, welcome into Jefferson City Schools today, second grade. What would you like to say this morning?
Hannah, Hannah, Hannah.
Welcome. It's third grade class in Fulton.
Hannah, Hannah, Hannah.
School kids all across this morning going to be talking about Joe Biden, what he said in Hawaii, and the Hannah song. What do you have for us this morning?
When you were a kid, I know that was a really long time ago, but let's try to think back, okay? Did you ever ride one of those big wheel little bicycles, or tricycles maybe would be a better word?
Yeah, here the Green Machine big wheel that didn't have a steering wheel, had levers.
What?
Oh yeah, look, when you get a chance, look it up. The Green Machine, that was awesome because it didn't have a steering. It had like levers.
You could spin it out real easy.
Yeah, the Green Machine.
Yeah, so basically the big wheel, you're sitting on the rear axle, basically on the ground, and you've got one gigantic wheel in the front, and you just kind of have to, lean forward and grab the handlebars. But there might be an adult-sized electric version of this coming to a market near you. The company is called Vuk, and they have reached 200% of their crowdfunding goal, and they want to release these electric, adult-sized, big-wheel bicycles that have a range of 110 miles.
What?
Yes.
I think, John, I could actually be on. So you're not talking like a Rascal scooter, like when you go into Mosier's grocery stores and they have where you can get the people get the scooters to go around. You're not talking like that. You're talking about like an electric powered big wheel for adults for fun.
Yeah. And with 110-mile range on this electric bike, I mean, you could go anywhere.
I can see Hannah zooming every morning from California into the studios.
Sounds like a death trap.
It does kind of. But yeah, it's got an aluminum frame, and it comes in a bunch of different colors. You can get one for about $1,500 now.
Oh.
And yeah, they're not cheap. Maybe though, once one hits the market, there will be copycats, and it'll be a race to see who can make it cheaper.
How much?
They start at $1,500.
I think that would be fun.
The bike itself weighs 88 pounds, and recharging takes between 2.5 to 4 hours.
I could envision like you get off to the airport. You're on 63, and you get off at that airport exit, and they got that big roundabout there. Taking that in a big wheel. Yes.
I've got pictures posted on the Wake Up Facebook page. It's got a gigantic headlight on the front. And if you scroll through some of the stock photos on the website, they have a guy wearing like a full racing helmet, like with the enclosed mask and everything. I don't know if it's that serious, but
I take my toys pretty seriously. So seriously, in fact, I don a motorcycle helmet before I get out and roll around. The dude
doggone it and feeling pretty good. And really all of them, they just talk about common struggles that I feel like everybody deals with. I mean, it's really just how I felt. And so I guess other people inherently feel that way.
Amen. Oliver Anthony. He is the dude who went viral like 10 days ago. 10 days ago, nobody knew who this guy was. And now we're just putting his name out there freely. Remarkable story. He's got an incredible accomplishment. It's never been done in the history of the entertainment industry. This guy, and I'm sure probably you've seen the video. Dude's got like red hair. He's got a beard, just wearing a T-shirt. I mean, he's just he's like Leonard Skinner's simple kind of man, John. He's, a regular dude,
Yeah, big time.
Big time regular dude. He is doing something nobody has ever done. And he's got this song, Richmond, north of Richland. And I'll spoiler alert, the song's still #1 most downloaded song in the country.
Well, and did you see that he turned down a recording deal?
Yeah,
it was going to be an $8 million record deal, and he turned it down.
He said, "No thanks, man. I'm not doing it." And I love what he says there because he's right. As people driving their kids to school this morning, a lot of kids back in school all across mid-Missouri, moms and dads, and they're dealing with the kids and all, and they're thinking, man, I got some stressors in life. We'll go back to the conversation we shared yesterday. You talk about those numbers, inflation, this, that, and all you want. Those are real stories. Like
and it's beyond left or right. I mean, the Robert Reich, left-wing guy, Arthur Brooks, right-wing guy. Well, things are great. Things are super. People going to the store, getting groceries. Like, I don't think so. That's not my life. Cutting back on savings rates. People are not saving as much for retirement. Savings rates going down. People had a lot of cash in their bank account, maybe from stimulus. That a lot of people spent that through.
And I think Hannah had a good take on kind of life in general as it relates.
Oh, what I said in the commercial break? I said, being alive is expensive.
Ain't that the truth?
And that encapsulates it. And those are real stories. And especially, here's what I think about. When I think about the retirement thing and how the mood, and I look at my dad, who's a most brilliant computer programmer I've ever met in my life. Probably only computer programmer I've ever met in my life, really. He was the dude that came. He was one of the folks that went in and fixed the Obamacare website. And my dad, in retirement, my dad's now slinging cigarettes at a gas station outside of Hillsboro, Missouri. All right? Now, I don't know how honest I should be about this story. He's doing it because he's bored, but I love the narrative. See, even my dad, my poor 73-year-old dad, the big guy had to go back to work and sling cigarettes and 6-packs of beer to construction workers on Friday so he can make ends meet.
Well, and you often talk about how you try to make plans with him on the weekend, but his work schedule's not out for the weekend.
Retired guy's work schedule's getting in the way. Yeah.
John, my dad's a 73-year-old dude. And I'm like, hey, Dad, let's hook up this weekend. Let's hang out. I want to listen to your progress on your piano lessons. Like, well, I got to wait until I post the schedule in the break room on Friday by the microwave.
I think you need to get him a dobro and some country songs, and he can get that $8 million contract.
Welcome to the show. Let's wake up mid-Missouri. There's Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Very involved local politics, writes for the Columbia Missourian, and a lot. As a matter of fact, you did a piece, Try That in a Small Town. We talk about these things that people are catching on. They're like, yeah, and it's not just a conservative thing. It is a people thing. Jason Aldean had that song, Try That in a Small Town. Steve went and traveled. You were all across mid-Missouri.
I travel somewhat around mid-Missouri. I grew up outside of Columbia, kind of rural subdivision and so forth, but kind of town and country. I enjoy both, and just been a while since I've been out and about, and just kind of reflecting on the beauty of a small town, and just people know each other. The traffic isn't bad. You got clear skies. Just a whole different feel and pace of life.
From Versailles to Centralia,
right.
To all of these places. Great article in the Missourian, Try That in a Small Town. Jason Aldean's song, of course, that went because people got, oh, my God, he's talking about this, and that. Yeah, and you know what? People are buying it, man, because this is affecting all of this. So as Hannah said, this dude, by the way, there's John Marsh, producer Hannah. I'm Branden Rathert. GOP's universal reaction to Trump skipping the debate. Everything I saw yesterday, I'm in the minority on this. I think it's a good move. When your attorney says, hey, you probably shouldn't go on the debate for legal reasons, and people know you, I'm on board with that. It does not bother me one bit. There was a hearing last week regarding Judicial Watch's lawsuit against the Capitol Police. This has to do with January 6th. Now, the judge in the case, he had kind of a I'm calling it baffling, and I'm not sure if that's the right take on it. We're going to find out. Michael Bekesha, Judicial Watch, be here with us when he is here at 8:10. Also, only one new car anymore, under 20 grand. What is that car? We're doing that. Morning Bell, 8:25. Business news, a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. So as Hannah said, this dude how much money did he turn down?
It was an $8 million offer for a record deal.
And I would assume the reasoning is because I don't like money, and I don't want to be comfortable, and I don't want to be rich. Or maybe, I don't know, his principle.
They're going to control his thing, or...
He said, so this was a direct quote from him. He said, I don't want 6 tour buses, 15 tractor trailers, and a jet. I don't want to play stadium shows. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I wrote the music I wrote because I was suffering with mental health and depression.
Man, and it's resonating.
Wants to keep it real.
He currently lives in a $750 camper he bought off of Craigslist.
My goodness. And if
That's keeping it real.
Yeah.
And if he had the money, maybe he'd go out and buy one of those adult battery-powered big wheels.
Oh, yeah. Did you see Jack's text that we got about that? He's kind of making fun of you a little, Brandon.
Every morning, 7:25-ish, What's Hot with Hannah. And there are pictures on our Facebook page that you can see of this. It's a big wheel for adults.
Yeah, and I was showing Brandon pictures in the break, and he's like, oh, that's really cool. And then I mouse over to a picture of a dude sitting on one. He goes, maybe not.
I ain't that guy.
But Jack points out at 874-9390, Brandon has to say no to the big wheel. It's all electric, and he's against electric vehicles.
Jack, you get some points on a Feel Good Friday. This dude is doing this Oliver Anthony dude. He has 3 songs in the top 10. And from what we understand, he is the first, the only artist ever. Nobody's done this, whether it's Morgan Wallen, Taylor Swift, whoever you want to look at, to have a song go number 1 and never having had any commercial music released before. And it's this dude who just released the song, and he had a little bit of marketing help because somebody latched onto it and said, dude, I think what you're doing is really cool, and it is resonating, and I love it. As a matter of fact, it was on YouTube. When I first heard about it like 10 days ago, oh, yeah, the dude's got like 1 million views. Next day, 9 million views. And it keeps going up and up and up. And then I got to poking around some of the most watched videos on YouTube of all time. A couple of things that I thought were interesting about this, because I think about my own grandkids. Whenever I get to go to Idaho and hang out with them, I'm like, man, you guys get onto YouTube and do you watch Wake Up Mid-Missouri on the YouTube channel? Which you can do every morning. And they looked at me like I was Joe Biden or
Wake
something.
Up Mid-Missouri.
And they're like, no. And they start telling me what it is they watch. And the remarkable thing, if you look at some of the top videos of all time, most viewed videos on YouTube of all time, the large majority of it, it's kids material. Wheels on the Bus, phonics song with 2 words. Would anybody care to gander a guess at what would be the most watched video of all time?
At one point, wasn't it, What Does the Fox Say?
Oh, my gosh.
That was it for a while.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh.
Go, John.
And wait till we get to number 14 on this list. But this was number 1.
Oh.
One, 13 billion views for the Baby Shark song.
It eventually gets to Grandpa Shark, right?
Oh, yeah. Goes through the whole
Branden
family.
Shark.
There's an entire evolution. And then this thing, what surprised me, this whole list, and it's got some of your top song, Uptown Funk, things like that, Katy Perry's Roar, Counting Stars by One Republic.
Britney Spears.
Yeah. The number 13 on the list, or number 14 on the list, that's the one that caught my attention. I was kind of like, wow, because it's relatively, I guess, relatively older than most of the songs on the list. Does anybody remember this? Marsh, you nailed it, bud.
Scary, huh?
It was the Crazy Frog song. And this was a take on, you remember Harold Faltermeyer? He had that theme. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
What was the movie he did the theme song?
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. And he had a song, and it was one of those few songs in history. I think it went to number 1, and not a whole lot of instrumental songs. If you've ever seen it on YouTube, it's a pretty cool video. As a matter of fact, Steve even watched it. Steve Spellman, our guest co-host, was like, "Oh yeah."
I had a kid who showed it. Say, have you seen this? Oh, well, I have now.
Yeah, it's interesting. That was number 14 on the list, and I just thought it was. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Was Gangnam Style still on the list?
Gangnam Style, that's on the list.
11 all time, 4.8 billion views.
Colorful Eggs on a Farm, but a lot of kid videos, and that kind of surprised me. But we talk about this, how we're migrating to things, and that's why you can watch us. You watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, we're not in the top 14, but we're up there.
Top 20?
1,000-ish.
Yeah, maybe. Coming up just a few minutes from now here on the show, and that would be all except for this. I want to try to send you into work this morning with a little bit of a smile on your face. What do you have for us, John?
Some fava beans and a nice Chianti, Charlene.
Very nice. That's coming up.
Clarice, sorry.
Bye.
who had to spend a winter up in the high Sierras. Legend says some of them ate the ones who didn't survive. Public information officer for Caltrans says, yeah, well, there are 35 restaurants off that exit, so the sign is appropriate to notify motorists, but we also understand the irony. Some Facebook commenters didn't waste any time. One person commented, I heard there's a party going on up there, to which the California Highway Patrol social media page said, slowly dwindling, but yes. Others chimed in for a fine dining experience. Visit beautiful Donner Lake and bring the family. Another guy said, the food around the lake was finger-licking good. The ribs and shoulder are amazing, but I wasn't a fan of the liver and onions. Now you know the rest of that story.
Yikes.
If you're looking at your radio while you're heading into work this morning, listening on the apps, which are they're incredible new apps, by the way, we have for KWOS and 93.9, the Eagle. You're watching on the app, you see the cringe factor there and the Hannah-ism in your story this morning.
John, since we launched this segment, I love that you can consistently pick stories that Brandon is going to hate.
Well, that's the whole idea. I mean, it's keep Brandon happy. That's all about it. As the last person posted on the California Highway Patrol's page, I was just trying to be humorous. They aren't both humorous.
That's good.
Man, that's like next level Hannah-ism stuff. Well, I always wonder because if you were ever in that situation, like you got to do whatever it takes to survive. Could you hey man, this dude's dead. Let's try Bob over here, man. I just don't know that I could do that. But I think
we need our favorite chiropractor in here for this one, don't we?
Ashley Emmel, yeah, she'd be great on this. But whenever we're forced with a situation where you got to do whatever it takes to survive, like whether you're a single mom and you're having to go to school and do 2 jobs and get help from here and there, or whether you've got to do something different with your financial situation and get another job. Or
a little different than Ain't Uncle Larry, but okay.
This is a poor example I'm giving here, and I know it, man. But could you do it? I don't know that I could do it. So take that one into work with you this morning. And by the way, when you do get into work and you can't look at your radio and go, man, what are they talking about there on Wake Up Mid-Missouri? There's a couple of different options for you. You can, if you're on a computer, you can pull up the websites and you can click right on the front page, big button, listen live. You can click that, listen live. And the apps, Hannah, that's probably the easiest way to go about it.
Yeah, and if we're live on YouTube at the time that you're on the app, it has the direct link to the video feed.
So check that out. And, of course, you can watch the show by going to our YouTube channel. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And then you can also watch on our Facebook page, also on the Facebook page. Really cool pictures this morning. I'm fascinated by What's Hot with Hannah. We do it every morning, 7:25. It's a story about big wheels for adults. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm looking at our Facebook page and... Yeah.
You were all for it when I was showing you the photos until I got to the photo of a grown man sitting on one, and you didn't like it as much after that.
Yeah, I'm not that guy. I believe, and listen, I'm not misogynistic. I'm not any of that stuff, and I don't have the this ego. But there are some things dudes should not do. Like when dudes are texting each other, I don't think we should be sending smiley faces to each other. And we shouldn't be sitting on adult big wheels. We're talking about Oliver Anthony. He's the dude that's got the song. He has done what no other artist in music history has done. He's got the number 1 song. He's got 3 songs in the top 10, and he's done what no other artist has done. Got a number 1 song despite never having had a commercial release prior to that.
Drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to.
So that's his song. His real name, by the way. It would be reasonable to think Oliver Anthony is the singer's actual name. Turns out his birth name is Christopher Anthony Lunsford, while Oliver Anthony is the name of his grandfather, and that's the name that he uses. I don't care what you call the dude, man. He has struck a chord with folks, and he said, he's like, man, this is what I think and feel, and fortunately, I feel like there's more and more folks Americans just out on the streets. What do you think? How are you having to deal with the economy? And I hate that people are going through that, and I'm guessing there's some of us all hanging out this morning. We're going through some doubt. We're looking at especially the big stressor, I think, people I talk to in my age group. Stop it, Hannah. Concerns about retirement. I mean, seriously. Folks in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they've been planning for all these years, and then boom, the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021 when the guy gets up there, unity and all this stuff, and people's and they're looking at the retirement, and it's creating stressors.
Well, I mean, I'm starting to save for retirement because I don't want to be in a position where I might have to worry about that in a couple decades. So I wouldn't say I'm not totally unconcerned about it. Yeah. But it's important to start early.
That's right. And you're going to be okay, Hannah.
I hope so. This whole early 20s thing, not a fan. It sucks.
Dude, you are killing it. We are glad you are back. There's producer Hannah. Mr. John Marsh is here.
Good morning.
And Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you. Good morning, everyone.
Glad you could be here. My name is Branden Rathert. Stephanie's going to be back in the next few days. She's going to be providing some coverage for us of the big Trump-less debate tomorrow night. The majority of the GOP, and I'm standing by what I've been saying. Trump is making the right decision here. I do believe this. Listen, if your attorney is saying, hey, you should know how to do the debate because it could really affect, number one, your legal cases. Number two, ultimately, there is no upside to this. And I think that's Trump's thinking. But when your attorney says you shouldn't do this, he's making the right decision. Nothing to be gained here. And I think, because again, we keep talking about, listen, he's got the GOP nomination wrapped up. That's not the challenge we are facing. The challenge we are facing is the general election, which if we're believing those same poll numbers, okay, that says Trump has a huge lead, if we're believing those numbers, then do we also believe the numbers that show he's going to lose? Every matchup against Joe Biden, he will lose. He will lose. If we're believing those polls, it shows he's in the big lead.
I think the one thing we've got to point out is that those polls notorious underpoll Republicans.
Sure.
They're but your point is very well taken. Now, Congressman Alford last week on this very show actually said that in his own defense he should show up. So I've heard it both ways, but it's probably attorneys telling him that.
I am rock solid in the minority in thinking he is making the right decision. Everything I saw yesterday in conservative outlets, people say he should do it. He's a coward. I don't hold with that at all. Welcome into the show. One of the things we're covering, there was a hearing last week regarding Judicial Watch's lawsuit against Capitol Police. Now, the judge in the case I'm calling it a baffling line of questioning, and I wasn't real sure, so I chatted with Michael Bekesha with Judicial Watch. You see him all over the place in conservative circles. He is joining us on the show now back here in mid-Missouri. He is a Mizzou grad. Michael, let's start here. Thanks for joining us on the show. What's this particular case about that Judicial Watch is involved in?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Branden. So Judicial Watch sued about a year and a half ago the Capitol Police for the January 6 videos from the Capitol. So from noon to roughly 9 p.m. on January 6th, we're interested in not just the clips that the Democrats have shown during the impeachment hearings, not just the clips that the Justice Department is showing during the various criminal trials, but we want to see all the tapes. We want to see everything and make all the tapes, which is roughly 14,000 hours of video, available to the public so the public can fully see what happened on January 6th at the Capitol.
Doesn't seem like an unreasonable request to me. I don't understand, Michael, what is the pushback? If we got to see the videos that the Democrats wanted us to see, why the pushback on trying to get the rest of the videos?
Yeah, so I mean, it gets complicated because the Capitol Police are arguing that under the law, they are not required to turn over the tapes. That's one of the arguments. But the other argument that we came up against the other day in court was we were in front of a federal judge here in Washington, D.C., and the judge during the hearing called January 6th an insurrection, and then she asked us why we thought the public had an interest or a right to see the records. She seemed confused why we were asking for all 14,000 hours. And to me, that makes little sense, right? If she thinks that January 6th was an insurrection, wouldn't you want to see all the tape from the insurrection to see what happened that day and from their perspective, from her perspective, how awful it was that day. And, my response was, a lot of the colleagues, a lot of the judges on the federal court here are calling it an insurrection. Some folks are calling it a riot. People are calling that day all sorts of different things. So let's have the public see everything. Let everybody see everything that happened that day, and let the public be able to make a decision about it.
So I want, by the way, our guest, Michael Bekesha, Judicial Watch. You see him all over conservative news circles. I want to make sure I have this clear, Michael. The judge handling your case, you're in this case, you're wrapped up in it, saying, listen, you've released some of the videos have been released. We'd like to have the rest of it. The judge that you're arguing this case in front of, she says it's an insurrection. That's what she is calling it. And so you're saying, okay, if you're calling it an insurrection, can we have the video? So I'm baffled. Is that the correct? I'm looking at this like a puppy dog would look at you when you're trying to tell it to sit. Am I correct in my reaction to this?
You absolutely are. And then the additional layer that we have is the Capitol Police are now starting to make this argument that all of the material needs to be protected because it would be a security concern for the Capitol if all the tapes are being released. And our response to that is a lot of material has already been released, but also, come on, seriously, those cameras that are in the lobby, there's probably 10, 15 of them that you can walk into the Capitol and look up and see the tapes. How could all that footage, lead to security harms in the future?
Yeah. I want to ask you this, personal opinions aside, but as an attorney, when you're in front of a judge, what is your reaction on a professional level from the judge? You're like, well, but you're calling it this. Personal opinions aside, what is your professional take on this?
My professional take is we at Judicial Watch are, fighting the fight. Yeah. We are taking positions that are unpopular to the mainstream, and, you stand up there and you continue to argue, and we always know it's going to be a challenge, but sometimes it's surprising when you have somebody say one thing and then seems to be contrary to what their position is or what their next question is.
Surprising is a very good word, Michael. It's surprising. I get what you are saying, man. Mizzou grad, Michael Bekesha, he is with Judicial Watch. And quick, what for folks that are, because we got a lot of new young listeners are going, man, what's happening here? And they're listening to News Talk Radio and they're listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Kind of give us a rundown. Basically, what do you guys do at Judicial Watch?
Judicial Watch is a nonprofit government watchdog group. So we've been around for about 25 years. People ask me what I do for a living, and I say I sue the government. So we're here looking out for the people, making sure that the government's being held accountable. We ask for records. We represent individuals that have been fired, for First Amendment violations and all sorts of different activities to really hold account to those in power. And to learn more information about us, judicialwatch.org, as well as Twitter, Facebook, all those different social media sites that, I just personally don't involve myself in.
Hey, man, we're kindred spirits, man. Just ask producer Hannah when it comes to the social media stuff. By the way, I am on Twitter at Rathert Branden. You can find producer Hannah on Twitter also.
Producer_Hannah.
All right, judicialwatch.org. Michael Bekesha, and I want to say he's in the nation's capital, and you just got to be in Missouri's capital. It was good having you in Jefferson City. Stephanie Bell's big birthday party the other night, and I know you've been here before. What's one of the things that you miss about being in mid-Missouri?
Well, I'd have to say Trops in Columbia, tropical liqueurs. So I don't know if that's the PC answer, but, I had a friend bring it to me the other night, and boy, did I miss it.
Judicialwatch.org. Michael Bekesha, watch what this guy does. As it's a government watchdog organization, and we appreciate what you do. Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Thanks so much.
All right. We'll chat with you next time. Really, really good dude. Talking earlier about some things dudes shouldn't do. Hannah's posted some stuff on our social media and our Facebook page. Big wheel. Remember when we were kids, you had the big wheel, big old and they were plastic and they were horrible, frankly.
You basically are almost on the ground with your rear end.
And the handles are up here like you think you're a dude on one of them Harley choppers and stuff. And I thought, what a cool concept. And then I saw a picture and I'm like, yeah, that is really cool. And then I saw another picture.
You saw the picture of a dude sitting on it, and you immediately changed your mind.
Nope. And one of the other things I said, there's just some things that dudes shouldn't do. And one of the things I said was dudes shouldn't be swapping text with other dudes. And I want to bring this up. Randy says, I'm a dad, so sending smiley hug emojis to my sons is not okay. No, that's good. That's acceptable. But like your best friend, you got your best.
That's acceptable. Like you are the.
I'm the arbiter.
The decider of what is considered manly.
John, it's like when I get out in traffic, when I drive and I'm cranky and I'm having a bad day, all of a sudden I've decided to become a traffic cop and criticize everybody else's.
Who gave you a license?
That's right. And this while driving the other day. You know that you see those cars with bumper stickers that says student driver on board or I'm a student driver. I appreciate the heads up. Give me some space. I think we should also have bumper stickers that says warning, I'm an idiot and don't know how to drive. I think those would be cool.
What's the one that says if you don't like the way I'm driving, maybe you should stay off the sidewalk?
I feel like the people who are the most critical of other people's driving are often the worst drivers.
Well, and what's the other bumper? When you see those companies, like they're in a company vehicle or something, it says, how's my driving? Call 1-800-I-SNITCH or whatever the phone number is. And then there's the take on that. Call 1-800.
Easy. Easy.
Well, business news, little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can give you. She'll be back here in the next few days. She's going to be covering tomorrow night's debate. She's going to be there. She's going to be checking in with some. I love this stuff because, listen, we get a national dude from Fox News or from some national organization, and they could sit there and tell us, here's what we expect. And then the next morning, they say, here's what we saw. Sure, they're going to see the same thing that we are all going to see on the TV. But what's different? Two things. Number one, Stephanie Bell is going to be running around in those circles, and that's where the cool stuff comes. It's not always on the debate stage. It's some of that underneath stuff, if you will, and it's from the point of view of somebody that lives here with us. All right, Morning Bell futures this morning, all in the green. Interesting story. Only one new car under 20 grand. John, I'm surprised that there are any cars left under 20 grand. I remember I paid like, I don't know, it was like $350 for a 1970 Ford LTD, $350 used. Had the vinyl flowery seats, and it was this old rust-colored green, and I drove that thing into the ground after I had it for about a month and a half is how long I had my first car. I busted that.
I had a $75 Mustang once that actually ran.
No kidding. Man, that's a find. So as the average price for a new vehicle continues to go up every single year, only one car still has a price tag under $20,000. Apparently, it's the Mitsubishi Mirage. It's the last new car with an average purchase price under 20 grand. Now, this is according to a Kelley Blue Book report. Other new cars have starting prices under 20 grand, but then the actual purchase price, if you want to put things on there like windows and tires, it goes up.
Engine.
You want an engine in that thing? That'll cost you another $8 grand. Last month, the Mitsubishi Mirage's average transaction price was 19 grand, a little over 19 grand, according to the report. Check this out. Here's the part that really matters. Okay, so we've got one car that you can get for under 20 grand. 1 year ago, there were 12 cars, 12 of them, that you could get for under 20 grand. So see, I don't want to sound preachy or anything, but these are the things that we pay attention to. We fancy numbers, inflation numbers, consumer price indices, things like that. But it's these things, I think, the real stories. There were a dozen vehicles that were under 20 grand. Now, some of these smaller vehicles, including like the Kia Rio, the Nissan Versa, those little cars, they all have an average purchase price over 20 grand. Average price for a new car, 48 grand in July. Americans paid 48 grand.
Well, you were saying, a year ago there was 12 cars under that? It was like 2 years ago there were 12 cars on the market.
It's a really good, it's a good point. And then I remember during the government pandemic several years ago, there was a vehicle I was looking at, and it was in the Jeep brand. I wanted to get back into the Jeep brand. I'd been in it for years, got out of it for a few years, and it takes me forever. You talk about fear of commitment. Mm-hmm. Even when it comes to purchasing stuff, I've been afraid to buy a new cell phone for 5 years, Hannah.
Yep.
Because it's a commitment. But my phone, my Galaxy S8 that I've had since 2017, is finally starting to do it. But I don't want to commit to a new cell phone. And then buying a car, man, that takes forever. So I had been looking at this car, and when I looked at the car, it was, I don't know, whatever it was. But then within a matter of months, because of the government pandemic, that same car had gone up, and it was like almost 10 grand. I mean, I took pictures. It was the exact same car, the window sticker price, and that was in mid-Missouri. And it was no fault of the local dealers. It was just what was happening because all these government entities were saying, you got to shut down, you got to stay home. Instead of giving you freedom of choice, we're going to tell you what to do. And now, today, we are seeing the consequences of what happened when you have people like progressives and Democrats saying, you're going to do what we say. And guess what? Now you can't get a car hardly for under 20 grand anymore. Anybody remember the name Tricia Krenzel? I don't recognize the name, but I'm like, oh, yeah, I know who she is. And she's crossing paths with politics. That's coming up at 8:35.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so I think the people are fair enough.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? He's, it's similar to WWF as a child growing up, and they just played these sides where it was all scripted and manipulated by the people behind the curtain, dictating the outcomes of who's going to be champion.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more to the left? No, the Democratic Party is actually cultural Marxist party.
It's the Democratic Party leaning more to the left, in my opinion. I believe all politicians are basically taking money. They'll lean whatever way they can to get money put in their pocket.
Go on, take the money and run. 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 Billy Mack is a detective down in Texas. He knows just exactly what the facts is. He ain't gonna let those two escape justice.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics with history mixed together.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics in general. I have a degree in political science. I find the whole Donald Trump presidency and the reactions from the media and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party absolutely fascinating as a study in political science.
My favorite news subject to talk about is I like the local news because it doesn't get into all these politics and actually tells you what's going on in your neighborhood.
We'll put a gun in every Taiwanese household, train them how to use it. That is how you make Xi Jinping think twice.
Do you really think that would be a sufficient plan to deter a Chinese invasion if it includes long-range missiles, ground troops, an aerial blockade, a naval blockade?
Caitlin,
all of the different measures here?
Caitlin, of course it's not sufficient. You take that tiny little clip when I've articulated it, the Nixon Library last week.
So 2 days in a row, CNN getting tapped on their own network. Vivek Ramaswamy, she played that was a 7-second clip, and she's trying to, what about, and he's like, hey, Caitlin, there's context there, which you are missing. Again, that's what they do. But I love that they're getting called out about it right to somebody's face. Welcome into the show. Wake up, Mid-Missouri. There's Mr. John Marsh.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
What up?
My name is Branden Rathert. I think we might open up the listener mailbag. Folks sharing about their first cars. Morning bell. One car left that you can get for under 20 grand. Folks are sharing what their first car was, which is always kind of fun. Coming up this morning, Jennifer Bekesha is in for Gary Nolan. And, even when Jennifer Bekesha is here, it still happens to be my dad's favorite talk show. Can't wait to see what she's got coming up today. Tricia Krenzel, if John and I were having lunch in Ashland today, like a wagon wheel or something, and John, remember Tricia Krenzel? I would say nope.
Nope.
But if you were to say, John, you remember who the Tan Mom was?
The Tan Mom. Yeah.
I've got a message to use protection from the sun.
Remember, I think it was like 2011, 2012. She became known as the Tan Mom after she was arrested for allegedly taking her 5-year-old daughter into a tanning salon in New Jersey. And then the photos of her came out, and she said this woman, she lived in a tanning salon. We bring her now. Ultimately, she
looked like the Marlboro Man, as I recall.
Like it was. Listen, and I get some people will go to a tanning salon for like 5 minutes at a time for a couple of weeks for vitamin D, what have you. Tricia Krenzel and what she did. We remember the pictures of what she looked like. She's back in the news now. She wants to run for Senate in Florida. She wants to run against Rick Scott. She wants to run for the United States Senate. And basically, over the past several years, as Tricia Krenzel, she's put out songs and she's made like media appearances. They've relocated to Tampa, but haven't done anything. But man, wouldn't that be a fun race as we get ready for our debate tomorrow night? Presidential debate, GOP presidential primary debate. Of course, it is going to be Trumpless. I think there's going to be one political television event this week that'll be bigger than that. And I'm surprised we haven't seen quite the. I've been expecting these previous indictments. Frankly, sometimes I've been worried like stuff's going to hit the fan and it's going to be nonstop coverage because there's rioting and stuff. Thank goodness that hasn't happened. See, that's what happens when you behave. But I'm worried. Thursday, he's going to be in Georgia. There's going to be a court appearance. And I keep thinking, I was at Scott Fawn's office. Of course, he has Missouri Times this week in Missouri politics. And you go through his office, and he has like this Hall of Fame of Missouri politicians. Pretty spectacular, really. I mean, it's got 30, 40 photographs.
Yeah, down the whole hallway as you walk in.
Yeah. And the one that sticks out the most is the mugshot of former Governor Eric Wright. And it's like, that's just front and center. And that's what folks want to see with Trump. And here's what I hope. By the way, you get onto Trump's website, Trump 2024, make a donation to his campaign because just about everybody else is doing it. Everybody on the GOP side is apparently in agreement, except for me. They're saying he should do the debate. I don't think he should because you're not changing anybody's mind. Trump, you're either going to like him or you're not. And if we're to believe the pollings that shows he will win the GOP primary easily, then we believe the same poll numbers that he will also then lose the general. There's nothing to gain from him here. And if your attorney says, hey, don't do this because it could cause more problems, then I think it's the right decision. New polling, immediate polling overnight. 73% of GOP are saying, nope, he should do the debate. And I know watching Twitter and following a lot of the social media news outlets yesterday, I'm in the minority.
But I think part of it, too, could be, like you said, his attorney. I mean, Chris Christie's calling him a coward. I'm just knowing what we know about the former president. He would obviously, I'm sure, love to be there. But we'll see what happens. But the one poll that really matters more than anything right now, general election's a long way off. But the Iowa poll is what I'm actually looking at, and we'll see what happens in this debate. But he's very popular in Iowa, and he did take credit for a couple things. The ethanol thing, which he probably should take credit for, that was a big deal. Ted Cruz came out and wasn't seen as favorable to ethanol at the time, 2016. But he said that he's the one that really cemented them as the first in the nation primary. That is a huge deal to Iowans. It may not seem like a big deal to anyone else outside that state, but it is. But it will be interesting to see, what kind of questions are asked, and are there other candidates who will stick out? I mean, I know you've talked about Ramaswamy. He seems to be gaining some momentum. I've heard good things about Senator Tim Scott, too.
Yeah, Scott and Ramaswamy. I like them. My opinion on DeSantis, I liked DeSantis because I thought he would have a better chance of winning the general, get out of the GOP. My opinion on DeSantis has evolved since the day that he announced he was running for president.
Letters, I get letters.
All right, let's do the mailbag here.
So many letters.
We don't get any letters. We get texts.
A whole bunch of letters.
874-9390.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
John Marsh got the conversation started. Morning Bell, we were talking about one car left that you could get for under $20,000. Your one of your first cars, how much? It was a Mustang. How much did you pay for it?
$75, and about every other week you had to take two of the spark plugs out and clean the oil off them if you wanted it to run.
It wasn't my first car. I think it was my second or third one, but it was a 79 Jeep CJ7, man, and it didn't. That top came off in May, and it didn't go back on until maybe October, and every week I was stopping and putting oil in it, man. I was doing all, but I love the way, because it was all about the way it looked, right? I didn't care how it ran. I didn't care that the brakes were, iffy at best.
That's such a dude answer.
Nah, it was, because I wanted people to see, I wanted people to think I was cool, and I was.
I've told you before, I had a 79 CJ7 as well.
Yeah. Hannah, your first car?
It was, I want to say, it was either an 05 or an 08 Chevy Impala. I drove it until I totaled it, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It was a good car. Up until you totaled it.
It wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, up until I smushed it.
Randy, first car, 76 Capri Classic. Did not have power steering. Did not have reverse. My dad had a Dodge Monaco. It was like a 72, 73. About as big as they come. Big old brown car. And he lost reverse in it for a while. And we couldn't afford to get it fixed because we grew up poor folks on the south side of St. Louis. So we just lived with this car that did not have reverse. We didn't have a garage. We didn't have any of that. You had to park it on the street. And sometimes it might take you an hour to find a parking spot that was going to work for you because you didn't have reverse. I know that pain. John, first new truck, 1998 was $20,000. 3/4 ton long bed extended cab Chevy, 1998. Brenda, 1985 Monte Carlo. Still has it. My goodness. Brenda also says, I was reading in my grandmother's journal from 1962. My dad got a job as he was going to school, MU. He was going to school at MU, and he was in the meat cutting department, 20 hours a week, and he made $1.05 a day. How about that? It's just perspective on things. Win, 56 DeSoto 4-door. With a Fire Dome Hemi push-button automatic. Wow. Self-winding clock in the center of the steering wheel. I could pack almost everybody in that car. 9,000 original miles. $150. John, I don't know cars. What does this guy mean when he says Fire Dome Hemi push-button automatic?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's any kind of old Chrysler products had those push-button automatic transmissions with a bunch of buttons on the dash. That's pretty cool.
How about that? Also off the text, have you seen masks and social distancing coming back? We cannot allow any footholds in Missouri. I have not seen that, although I will say I was at on the MKT trail the other day on Forum Boulevard, and this was in Columbia, and saw some and I don't know why, but I saw folks wearing masks outside, which always baffled me anyway. And listen, that's their decision and stuff like that. But here's what I wonder about that stuff. listen, you're protecting yourself from allergies, or you think you're going to catch the cooties or whatever it is, that's fine. But I think they come to those decisions because they watch these news outlets and they think, oh, my God, this stuff is going to come get me. 874-9390. Dwayne, 1976 Ford Courier, 5-speed. Wasn't the Ford Courier, was that like a little van?
No, it was a little mini truck.
Little mini truck. How about that?
A mini truck. That sounds adorable.
And they were
before the Ford Ranger, predated the Ranger.
Yeah. I mean, these were tiny little trucks. Hey, man, we appreciate your text here on the show, 874-9390, 874-9390. Coming up, we're going to do some leftovers. We have one of those wedding horror stories. I don't Nolan Show is hosted by Jennifer Bekowski today, the North American Numbering Plan Administrator. Basically, folks that deal with area codes. They informed the Missouri Public Service Commission of the need for a new area code in the current 573 region. That sounds like us, Marsh. We are 573 mostly, aren't we?
That's us, pretty much.
Yeah, 573. I'm still trying to get used to the 573 area code, which was put in place. Clinton was president in 1996. Because I was in the 314, and then they split into 573. I'm still getting used to the 573 all these years later. But now so they're not going to change people's digits, apparently. They're not going to be changing any area codes. But if you get a new phone, if you get a new fax line, whatever it is, you're going to be getting the new 235 area code. And apparently this is going to be going into effect in February. We will have another area code to deal with. Marsh, what do you have for leftovers?
This one's kind of cool. In Jefferson City, students all back to class yesterday, and now there is the Thorpe Gordon STEM Academy, Jefferson City's first STEM school in the district. Spent about $6 million making the transformation, so that's kind of cool.
That's exciting. A lot of folks going back to school today. And this, some of our neighbors in mid-Missouri, man, I feel bad for these folks. We're talking Randolph County and Macon last night. There was a hearing. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources held a public meeting, and they wanted to hear comments. What does the community think regarding the draft permit for a waste basin? Basically, they're trying to stop an animal waste lagoon from being constructed. And they heard it. Apparently, according to our news partners at ABC 17, people showed up in droves with over 100 people packing the DNR's regional office in Macon. State Senator Cindy O'Laughlin was there, and apparently it was pretty loud. So Denali Water Solutions collects meat, dairy food, and pet food products from Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. If they're given a permit, they'd be allowed to dump that waste into a basin and apply the material as soil. The basin can hold up to 15 million gallons. Now, in a similar lagoon in Fairview, Missouri, that boiled over due to foam. Gosh, it sounds disgusting. Sounds like this should be something we do, and that would be all.
That's what I was just thinking. It sounds like a story that John picked out.
Every morning about 7:50, John does something called, and that would be all except for this. And it's usually some pretty cool stories. Try to send you into work with something a little different. And Hannah, in the time that we've been doing, and that would be all except for this, there seems to have been a common theme in these.
You get really grossed out, and it's a lot of fun to watch you squirm.
That's right. You're probably the best deal would be, even on the radio, stay upwind.
So when we talk about lagoons with animal waste, when we talk about 15 million gallon lagoons with animal waste boiling over, with meat and ground up bone and all that stuff in there. Whew. Yeah, I get a little queasy. As a matter of fact, check out, and I love a good acronym. Citizens of Randolph County Against Pollution. CRAP, C-R-A-P, is trying to rally support to stop the project. One of the residents said, I'm less than a mile from the basin site. Two of our largest fields that are on our farm are directly across from the road. They argue the lagoon is going to reduce property value. It's going to produce a foul odor. Yeah, when you have 15 million gallons of animal sludge boiling over in August when the high temp is 101 and the heat index makes it feel like it's 287 degrees, yeah, it's going to be a little foul smelling. I wouldn't want to live by it either. And I look at our friends in Callaway County, what they've been dealing with these solar farms that are going up, and kind of the battles between property owners in these.
They've had their battles over corporate farms and big hog feeding operations themselves.
Yeah, and you talk to these people wherever you are in Callaway County, and they're saying, it's almost pitting neighbor against neighbor, because you have one neighbor says, my land, I can do with it what I want. And then the neighbor next door is saying, yeah, but then you're going to affect my property values. And I will always go back to Listen, it's my property. I can do with it as I please. Coming up on the Gary Nolan Show, it's Jennifer Bukowski. What can we look forward to today?
Good morning, Branden Rathert. We are having their RNC communications directors coming on to talk about the debate in the first hour. In the second hour, I have my good friend Kurt Schaefer coming in to kick around several different topics. We have, that Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal. I've got some audio from that was interesting on the Missouri v. Biden case, and a host of topics. So it's my third and final day, this time, sitting in for Gary.
Did you see I've been thoroughly getting my rear end kicked on my opinion regarding Trump not doing the debate? There was some flash polling overnight, like 73% of Republicans are saying he should do the debate, and pretty much everything I saw in conservative circles yesterday was people upset that he's not doing it.
He'd be an idiot to do it. He's so far ahead. I mean, why would he do it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I think.
It's disappointing as a matter of entertainment for us.
That's right. And if I hire you to be my attorney and you tell me to do something, by George, I should probably follow your advice, right?
One would hope. That's the thing of being Donald Trump's defense attorney in any of these 4 criminal cases is usually you have clients that will listen to you about, hey, take down these social media posts or whatever else. Trump's unpredictable, man. So I just hope they don't put him in jail pending trial in any of these 4 jurisdictions.
I could imagine attorneys in his office and Trump comes in, wants to hire him, and